November 22nd, 2025, amateur astronomers around the world pointed their telescopes at Atlas. What they captured changes everything. The anti-tail is now 5 million kilometers long. That shouldn't be physically possible. Let me show you why the math just destroyed the natural comet explanation. Multiple observers, different locations, different telescopes, all seeing the same thing. Independent observations spanning 3 days, November 22nd through 24th. Every single image shows the same structure. A massive tail extending 5 million kilometers away from the sun. An anti-tail pointing directly toward the sun, stretching 1 million kilometers. Tightly collimated, perfectly straight, undeniable. This isn't image artifact. This isn't measurement error. This is real. And the math says it can't be natural. Here's the problem. That anti-tail is punching through the solar wind. The solar wind flows at 400 kilometers per second. That's 1,000 times faster than thermal gas speed from a sublimating comet. 1,000 times. For the anti-tail to maintain its structure against that wind, it needs ram pressure, momentum flux, mass density 1 million times greater than the solar wind itself. 1 million times denser. Now here's where it gets brutal. To generate that kind of density naturally through sublimation, Atlas would need to be ejecting 200 tons per second for every square area 300,000 kilometers on a side, just for the anti-tail. Add the regular tail and you're looking at billions of tons of mass loss over October and November. The calculation is straightforward. Atlas has lost approximately 10% of its total mass in 2 months. That's 3.3 billion tons out of 33 billion total. Natural comets that lose 10% of their mass don't stay intact. They fragment. They break apart. Thermal stress creates cracks. Structural failure follows. Pieces separate. That's what comets do. Except Atlas didn't fragment. The images show one body, intact, solid, no breakup, no debris field, no fragmentation despite losing billions of tons. That's the contradiction that destroys natural explanations. Massive outgassing but stayed intact. You can't have both. Not with natural sublimation. But here's what makes this definitive. The non-gravitational acceleration, measured at perihelion, is now confirmed at 10 standard deviations, 10 sigma. That's statistically unquestionable. Atlas is accelerating in ways gravity alone cannot explain. For that acceleration to come from natural outgassing, momentum conservation requires more than 10% mass loss at thermal gas speeds of 400 meters per second. We just calculated Atlas lost about 10% of its mass based on the anti-tail structure, so the natural explanation requires exactly the amount of mass loss we're observing. Perfect match, right? Wrong. Because objects that lose 10% of their mass fragment, and Atlas didn't. Natural explanation. Impossible. Now let's look at the artificial alternative. Chemical rocket thrusters produce exhaust at 3,000 to 5,000 meters per second. That's 10 times faster than thermal sublimation. Ion drives reach 10,000 to 40,000 meters per second. That's 100 times faster. Ram pressure scales with velocity squared. If your exhaust moves 10 times faster, you need 100 times less mass to produce the same pressure. If it moves 100 times faster, you need 10,000 times less mass. One scenario requires impossible structural integrity. The other requires modest propellant expenditure. One defies material science. The other is basic rocketry. The images prove something powerful is happening. Multiple independent observers capturing the same massive anti-tail structure. 5 million kilometers of tail. 1 million kilometers of anti-tail. Perfectly collimated, despite Atlas rotating every 16 hours. That rotation should smear the jets into spirals. It doesn't. The structure stays straight, like it's being produced by fixed nozzles maintaining orientation independent of the body's spin. December 19th. Atlas makes closest approach to Earth at 269 million kilometers. Hubble Space Telescope, James Webb Space Telescope, hundreds of ground observatories coordinated through the International Asteroid Warning Network. The spectroscopy data will measure jet velocities directly. Natural sublimation, 400 meters per second. Chemical thrusters, 3,000 to 5,000 meters per second. Ion drives, 10,000 to 40,000 meters per second. The velocity measurement distinguishes them definitively. No ambiguity, no interpretation required. The numbers will tell us if we're looking at thermal gas or rocket exhaust. The verdict comes in December, 3 weeks from now. The data will either confirm natural sublimation velocities or reveal propulsion system signatures. But here's what we already know from these new images. Natural comets that lose 10% of their mass break apart. Atlas didn't. Natural sublimation can't maintain anti-tail structure against solar wind at those densities. Atlas does. The mass loss required for natural explanation exceeds structural tolerance. The mass loss required for artificial explanation is trivial. Multiple telescopes, independent observers, consistent results. The anti-tail is real. The scale is massive. And the physics says nature can't build this. New images just dropped. The math says natural comets can't do this. December 19th will prove whether Atlas is following physics we don't understand or technology we haven't built. Yet, 3 weeks, the answer is coming.